we're going to get started. First of all, while I ask Anjali and Kay to come and join us, come and sit here. Signing books. We have Anjali has actually already won prize win. She's already written one prize-winning book, and she's been nominated for another prize, I think, today. So. Okay, so I'm going to introduce our speakers and then I'm going to let them get on with it. I've introduced myself. My name's Kiri Tunks. I'm a co-founder of Women's Place UK, and I've already talked about us and I'm not going to say any more. We have three absolutely fabulous speakers here with us tonight. We have Dani Ahrens, who is a founder member of Brighton Pride and a lifelong Labour activist. You can find Dani at Rebel Yarns on Twitter if you want to tag her into your tweets at Rebel Yarns, as in knitting or stories, I don't know which, both. We have Anjali Ralph, who is a founder and the CEO of Making Her Story, and as I've said, an award-winning children's author. And we also have Kay Green, who is a Labour Party member, an activist supporting gender-critical voices on the left. She has a particular message tonight for members of the Labour Party. Our speakers are going to try and speak for 15 minutes. I hope you can hear them. You're going to need to have both of these in front of you so the camera can pick up, and if there's a problem, you'll tell me. And then we're going to open up to questions, and then we have a room booked at the Ship, which I'm afraid is down near our other venue. But if you get your steps in. Okay, so without further ado, it is with great pleasure I'm going to step out of the way for Dani and ask her to address you. Dani, thanks so much for coming tonight.
Thank you very much. Welcome to everybody. If anyone hasn't got a seat, there are some seats down here at the front. Okay. Are we all right for sound? Okay. I'm 50 years old. I've been a left-wing political activist since I was 12. When I was 15, I spoke in Trafalgar Square on behalf of Youth CND alongside a young MP called Jeremy Corbyn. I campaigned against Section 28 and helped set up Brighton Pride. I made the front pages by invading the stage of the Brighton Centre when Princess Di was welcoming a homophobic conference. I've had eggs thrown at me in Churchill Square and glass bottles thrown at me in London for being an out lesbian. But I've never been as worried about the consequences of speaking in public about my beliefs as I am here today. I want to talk, don't clap because I haven't got enough time. I want to talk about the division that has opened up between many feminist activists of my generation and the current queer activist movement. We should be each other's allies, but the atmosphere is so toxic that we are hardly able to speak to each other at all. I'm worried that trans people I know and like will feel hurt and will think I am their enemy. I am not. I'm worried that I will lose the friendship of people I respect in Brighton and Hove. I am worried that I will be treated as an outcast in some political circles, and that this will make it difficult for me to continue my voluntary activity in solidarity with migrants and with benefit claimants in the city. I hope people will be prepared to hear what I have to say in good faith. I think it is possible to disagree politically while remaining courteous and respectful. I think learning from each other is more important than winning. I am worried, but I'm doing this anyway because something has gone very wrong and I want to be part of helping to put it right. I'm doing this because I can't accept that women like Helen Steele deserve to be vilified and ostracised. Helen Steele is a woman who has spent her life standing up against the destructive power of capitalism and the state. When McDonald's tried to shut her up by suing her for libel, she took them on in an epic court case and won, earning the lifelong admiration of many in my generation. The state tried to shut her up by sending undercover police officers into her small activist group. Helen has survived being deceived into a relationship by one of these spy cops and is still fighting for justice for herself and other women affected. But because Helen has spoken out about her feminist views, she was told this year that her presence made people feel unsafe, and she was asked to leave a climate protest camp organised by a group she helped to found. Many other excellent feminist activists have been cast out in the same way. If you are on the left and you think women like Helen Steele are suddenly the enemy, then something has gone very wrong. My mum was a feminist of the second wave. She went to women's liberation meetings in London in the early 70s and was part of the campaign to make sex discrimination illegal. Her generation of feminists, along with the organised labour movement, won some hugely important victories. As well as the Sex Discrimination and Equal Pay Acts, they won the right for women in most of the UK to access safe abortions. They established women's refuges and rape crisis centres, and they paved the way for better representation of women in Parliament, the media and the workforce. When I came out at 18, it was into an activist movement that took feminist ideas seriously and incorporated them into our practice. Brighton Area Action Against Section 28 listened to the experiences of lesbians who had broken away from the gay liberation movement a decade earlier, and we recognised that the way men and women are socialised means that men tend to dominate the space in mixed organisations. Therefore, we made sure that our meetings were chaired by women and our campaign was represented by women in the media and on public platforms. We rejected the Stonewall model of a paid CEO and professional lobbying because we knew that real change comes only from below. We were one of the most active and longest lasting local campaign groups in the movement against Section 28, and Brighton Pride emerged directly from our very political, grassroots, volunteer-run and female-led campaign. My overwhelming memory of that time is of a feeling of freedom. Being involved in the campaign was an intensely creative and empowering experience of working collectively with other people to make new things happen and demand change. As well as discovering and establishing myself, I learned a lot about how grassroots activism can weave together the diverse experiences and skills of a community to create a sense of solidarity that is more powerful than repressive laws. I am worried now that the experience of being involved in queer activism now is not a liberating one, particularly for young women, female non-binary people, and trans men. I hope I am mistaken about this, but I have been listening to young women who have detransitioned, desisted, or re-identified as women in the last few years. And one of the repeated themes of their stories is that within the trans community, they felt that only one path was available to them as they sought to understand themselves. Here are a few examples of statements I have seen from young detransitioned women in the UK in the last year. Quote, "I knew I was a boy because I meet the diagnostic criteria for gender dysphoria. A strong recognition of typically feminine toys and typically feminine clothes, mostly male friends, a sense that my feelings and reactions were typical of boys, the desire to be treated as a boy." When I spoke about these experiences to older friends or in online chat rooms, the message was affirming. Nobody encouraged the idea that it's okay to be gender non-conforming. Instead, friends and healthcare practitioners alike affirmed my gender. Yes, you are a boy. Quote, "Internalised homophobia and misogyny can play havoc on your mental state. I was a vulnerable person and I saw this one option that fit. No one talked about how dysphoria can have other causes." Quote, I wanted to find ways of dealing with my gender issues that aren't medically transitioning, and those ways weren't presented to me. The only solution that was presented was chopping your breasts off, injecting yourself with hormones, and becoming a man. Quote, "It's like my entire life for 7 years has been dominated by my gender dysphoria and wanting to avoid it as much as possible by passing, so much that I stopped being myself. Now I'm realising that my life doesn't have to be constrained by having to pass. It's so liberating." If you are a movement for liberation and your female activists feel that their involvement is constraining their possibilities, then something has gone very wrong. During the new Labour years, while I was busy with young children, Brighton Pride became more and more commercialised and less political. When we organised a weekend of activities around a protest march in 1991, none of us could have predicted that it would become the massive corporate spectacle it is today. Under Stonewall's leadership, the LGBT movement has abandoned the feminist analysis of marriage as a key site of women's oppression and embraced large corporations and celebrity endorsements until our community, with its radical, creative, subversive culture, has become nothing more challenging than a market segment. Slowly, I picked up a habit of holding my tongue. Nobody wanted to hear about how marriage is bad for women when there was a gay wedding fair to go to. What was the point of reminiscing about grassroots alternatives when we seem to have achieved mainstream acceptance? But it seems clear to me now that because we let that silence fall, young lesbians coming out into today's queer activist movement are cut off from the experiences of lesbian feminists who came before them. In fact, older lesbian feminists are explicitly positioned as their enemies, while massive corporations are presented as their friends. If you are a liberation movement and you think that Barclays, Aviva, Tesco and Procter & Gamble are on your side, then something has gone very wrong. When my youngest child was 11, I started writing and thinking about politics again as the impact of the coalition government's austerity programme began to hit. I was inspired by the working class women leading campaigns against the bedroom tax in the north of England and the young single mums of Focus E15 in London. Since 2010, at every level, austerity has hit women harder, and women have been, as usual, expected to patch up the gaps in our shredded safety net. Some of the most important gains made by feminists of my mother's generation are under threat. Funding cuts are leaving refugees vulnerable, while at the same time women's options are being severely restricted by benefit cuts and caps. Women are terrified that their children will be taken into care if they stay in an abusive relationship, but denied the financial means to leave. So far in 2019, at least 72 women in the UK have been killed by men. We still need places of safety for women. But Stonewall, in 2015, recommended to the Women and Equality Select Committee, a quote, a review of the Equality Act 2010 to include gender identity rather than gender reassignment as a protected characteristic, and to remove exemptions such as access to single-sex spaces. Just to be crystal clear, the exemptions they are referring to are the ones which allow service providers to exclude male people from some facilities and services, even if those male people have changed their legal sex by acquiring a gender recognition certificate. The example given in the Act explanatory notes is this. A group counselling session is provided for female victims of sexual assault. The organisers do not allow transsexual people to attend, as they judge that the clients who attend the group session are unlikely to do so if a male to female transsexual person was also there. This would be lawful. feminists of my mum's generation created safe spaces for female people to escape male violence. Spaces where women could have some respite, could share their trauma with other women who would understand, could begin to heal and make their way back into the world stronger. From nothing, women built up these services and kept them going over decades. But Stonewall would like the law changed so that these small safe spaces made by women for women are no longer permitted to exist. Here in Brighton, even without a change in the law, our local rape crisis service offers no female-only support groups. All their services are open to trans women on the basis of self-identification. Now, I am not in any way suggesting that trans women should be denied access to support if they have been assaulted, nor that it is unreasonable for rape crisis services and women's refuges to provide services for trans women. But I do think it is unreasonable to campaign for the removal of female-only spaces, which enable traumatised women to recover from male violence. If you are a liberation movement and you want to make it illegal for members of an oppressed group to organise independently, then something has gone very wrong. I am not an enemy of trans people. Nothing I have said this evening is an attack on trans people or a call for rights to be denied to any trans person. All of us, in fact, have a much more dangerous enemy than each other, and that is the growing threat of fascism, fueled by catastrophic climate change. At a moment when the human race is finally realising that we are not separate from the Earth's ecosystem, and our poisoning of the air, land and oceans is destroying our own habitat, we are already seeing how that plays out. More wars over resources, more movement of refugees across the world, and as always in situations of conflict, more rape and trafficking of women and intensified attempts to control our fertility. Whatever is in store for us as we head into the next stage of this national and global crisis, I think solidarity and diversity is going to be worth much more to all of us than the support of multinational corporations. We don't need to flatten all distinctions between us. We don't need to deny material reality, and we don't need to set our minds against our bodies. Instead, we need to learn how to listen to each other and learn from each other. That means, first of all, that everyone must acknowledge that there is a discussion to be had. We are well past the point where women will accept that our concerns are unspeakable. The Labour Party should be facilitating this discussion. The WP UK manifesto is a fantastic starting point. Let's identify the common problems we are dealing with and respectfully discuss how to tackle them. There will be areas where we disagree. It's okay. In fact, it is necessary for people to disagree with each other. That is how we learn. Let's talk together about male violence. 3/4 of violent crimes and 94% of homicides are committed by male people. Feminism has many theories about why that is. I want to hear what young people have to think about it. I stand in solidarity with everyone who is victimised by the long-standing connection between masculinity and violence. Let's talk together about stereotypes and socialisation. How do children learn what it means to be a boy or a girl? What would society look like if we let go of gendered rules, roles and expectations? Does individual self-identification on a spectrum actually make a difference to the way society works? Let's talk together about self-organisation. I hope everyone would agree that groups of people who face oppression sometimes need exclusive spaces in which to relax, recover from, and collectively resist their oppression. I think it's pretty clear that female people are an oppressed group and need to be able to organise autonomously. If you disagree, if they disagree, let's talk about it. Bring your argument and make your case. That's what we do in the labour movement and in the feminist movement. I regret that I held my tongue for such a long time. I am angry that I was intimidated into hiding my name for a year while engaging with these issues. Women like me, like Helen Steele, like Linda Bellos, like Bea Campbell, like Julie Bindel, have every right to participate in discussion in the movements we have helped to create. We are not the enemy. Let's talk.